Hey, good evening, and thank you for joining us on the Political Deep Dive. Tonight, I am Dave Valente, joined as always by AJ. Happy birthday, AJ.
Happy
you.
birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. You look like an AJ. And we're celebrating you too.
Oh, that's nice. I like that.
That is awesome.
Thank
May
you.
you have many consensual birthday spankings.
Yes. And
That
many
is the
happy returns of the day.
politically correct way of saying that.
Consensual. Consensual. I'm just saying consensual. If that is your thing. All right. So
Different topic for the show tonight.
we're did y'all get a chance to see the eclipse this weekend?
Did I not get introduced?
Oh, and Dan the man. Yeah, Dan.
Right, exactly.
It's Dan. It's just
You
Dan.
can just say, and with me as always is Dan.
And manservant Dan.
Yes. Indeed, I did not see any bit of the eclipse.
I didn't
I'm
see it
each of
in
you.
person. Yeah, I didn't see it in person. I saw it on now, the great thing is NASA does a lot of these broadcasts when there's celestial events or, they have like I think they go through their office and they pick kind of the most awkward human beings within their organization to do their television broadcast because it's definitely not must see TV, but it's entertaining in its awkwardness to begin with. I think that's the way I would do it. Like when they had their first JWST pictures, watching that broadcast was like they just had to go through like you have no personality, get out there.
Yeah, although that's a high bar. Most awkward person at
NASA.
NASA, yeah. I think they just go for young.
Yeah, I mean they're
If somebody's
young,
attention.
they're relatively attractive and
well,
yes,
their
get them to
first
sell the idea
requirement
of science.
is they take somebody who bathed today. So that eliminates 90% of the NASA employees.
Babes.
That's awful. Dude, it's not IT, man. I mean, it's not that bad.
I don't know, but you're right. There's some. Well, I mean, they do have people who are communications people, so I
Yeah.
guess those people are better prepared. AJ has eclipse glasses.
She
Yes.
does. You're not like Trump just staring up the sky squinting or at the sky squinting.
You would
Or when
be
they had that one.
surprised at the many differences between me and Trump, actually. Shocked, in fact, by there's so many differences. Yeah. I get prepared. I ordered these like last month.
I need to get some for because there's a big eclipse coming much closer to
April.
us in April. Yeah. In
Oh,
fact,
good.
if I wanted to see the totality, which is the part of the sky that gets, the moon will cover the entire sun, that is closest to me in Ohio. I'm thinking about making the trip.
Yeah, I'm going to
That's
drive
kinda
to.
cool.
It'll hit Western New York as well. I have my brother-in-law lives out in Utica.
Oh, okay.
And,
Maybe I'll
not Utica, essentially Buffalo.
Yeah, all right.
And so
Tonawanda.
Now I remember he lives in Oneida.
Oneida, okay. Or
Oneida. Yeah, I knew it was named after silverware.
Yeah, there you go.
I'll have to remember that and look and see what my closest place is. A few years ago, Totality was here, like in my hometown.
Yeah.
So they
Is
had
that
the
why you have the
huge
glasses?
celebrations. No, actually, I couldn't find those. I was like, and apparently they expire after 3 years anyway. So I don't know if I think it's been longer
I
than
think
that.
that's something they tell you to get you to buy a new pair.
Yeah, I agree.
Oh, well, I don't know. I'm not gonna take, Tylenol that's 3 years
What?
that's past
Come
its
on.
expiration date either.
'Live
Three-year-old
a little.
Tylenol's fine.
Live a little.
I
I like
agree.
my
Or
liver. I
or
like my
or
liver
die a
so
little, I
much.
don't know.
Dude, I
Or
I
die
eat
a
three
little. How would you know? Like,
I eat 3-year-old chicken. Maybe not
well, I
3-year-old
don't
chicken.
eat meat, so
Yeah, so, yeah, it's gonna hit the, northwestern corner of Tennessee, AJ, totality
do
in
I
April.
like anybody in the northwestern corner of Tennessee?
Well, if you just went a little bit north, you could get it up into, Kentucky, or
And
Missouri,
do you like anybody in Kentucky?
I
Arkansas.
don't think I like anybody in Kentucky. Oh, Arkansas is questionable too.
Wait,
Ah.
what? There's some nice libertarians in Arkansas.
You
Uh,
said libertarians. What makes you think I'm gonna like them?
I don't know any other people. Um, but, actually, it's gonna pass over Austin, Texas, which is a hell of a place for a vacation, and I would imagine they would
Mm,
do a hippy dippy, uh, eclipse watching there.
Yeah, there's a place in
Western
Texas.
Tennessee's possible.
Yeah, there's a place
You
in
still have
Texas
to
where both
realize
of
that.
these
Go
cut
ahead.
through. Well, no, there's a place in Texas, I can't remember the exact town name, but where this eclipse and the next one cut through, it's like the X marks the spot.
Yes.
Um,
I wonder
and
if those people are just
the
crazy.
Planetary Society is doing a big to do there in April for that. Um,
I'm
Bill
gonna send you a
Nye.
link in the private chat, Dave, and you can share it.
Like Neil deGrasse Tyson Planetary.
I don't know if he's part of the Planetary Society. I know Bill Nye is part of the Planetary Society.
I
Yep.
think he is. I think he is because he and Jonathan Frakes they haunt my Instagram, telling
Oh,
me to join it.
did you know? Now wait a minute. Are you old enough to have watched General Hospital with, Luke and Laura?
I do know who Luke and Laura are. Yes,
Did you know that Jonathan Frakes is married to Jeannie Francis, who played Laura? Right? Shocked you, huh?
oh, that
Oh,
They
has
met
blown my mind. I can't even imagine them in the same realm.
Yep, no, they met on the set of, North and South, which was a pretty good,
I
oh,
know
yeah.
what that is too. That was a
Or yeah, North and
miniseries,
South.
right?
Yeah,
It
yep,
had Patrick Swayze in it.
Patrick
it did.
Swayze, who, so I spent a lot of
I just
time with a
remember
lot
the
of younger
cover.
people. You might have seen a couple of my posts, uh, recently about, some of the kids who didn't know who AC/DC was and stuff like that, and probably one of the most shocking conversations I had was with a young woman who she's like, "I love romantic comedies." And I'm like, "Yeah," I was like, "I'm not huge
Okay.
into them, but I think Dirty Dancing, is amazing." She's like, "I've
Yeah.
never seen Dirty Dancing." And I'm like, "Dirty Dancing
What's
is the
wrong
best.
with people?
It's the best of all of them." She's like, "Who's in it?" I'm like, "Patrick Swayze." She's like, "I don't know him." I'm like, "Is he good looking?" I'm like, "You watch the movie and you tell me." And she came back, she's like, "Dan, that's the best looking man I've ever seen." And I'm like, I I don't necessarily agree because I see myself in the mirror every day, but Patrick Swayze is a hell of a good-looking man. No question about it.
Oh, yeah,
Absolutely.
and he made a phenomenally good-looking woman too. If you
He
ever
did.
saw,
Does he have a
Tu Wong
child?
Fu? No, Tu Wong Fu,
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Thanks for
No,
Everything,
he
Ju
was
Ju
amazing in that.
Julie
I
Newmar.
agree. They I mean,
What?
I mean, if you're a beautiful person, I think you're beautiful no matter what. Just, everything about it. But his character in Tu Wong Fu as well was just amazing.
Mhm.
That was a great movie too. I also liked him as the bad guy. I mean, not really the bad guy, but in Donnie Darko. Uh, and then of course, probably Roadhouse is his best movie.
Rip the throat out
Roadhouse.
thing. I remember that. I was so small. Like I probably was much too young to watch that movie, but it made an impression.
Yeah, I mean, there's so much about it.
And
Jennifer
Sam
Grey.
Elliott, fucking Sam Elliott, dude. Ah,
Yeah, no, he's great in that.
yeah.
And what's interesting is um, I'm trying to remember the actor's name now, but like the guy who owns the little barn that he camps out in. That was pretty awesome too. Uh, the Desiree, Roadhouse is dumb, but it's a good fighting movie if you like
It's a good
fighting movies.
fighting movie.
Yeah, I mean it's not Rumble in the Bronx or yeah, you didn't make it to the part that he's in because if you did, he would. It's
You gotta
arguably
watch.
yeah, it's arguably Sam Elliott's. It's a great role for him. I mean, he's good in what was the
Anything.
one with Lady Gaga? I can't think of it right now.
Star is Born.
Stars Born, right?
You're welcome.
And of course he's great in The Big Lebowski. But in general, all right, enough Dirty Dancing talk.
Hey, nobody puts
Oh,
Dirty Dancing in the corner.
Fair,
yes.
fair. That math
So
is
they had never seen this. These young people, as you said. How young are they?
they're like 30. Um, and so yeah, it was pretty surprising to me. But
That's
the thing
weird.
about it is that I forget how really old I am, and so it's all relative. Dirty Dancing came out. When do you think it came out?
85?
Yeah, I think it's something like that too. 87.
87.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, it's more than 30 years old. So I mean, didn't come out in their lifetime, and you know, they just never got into it.
But I bet they've seen freaking Star Wars. That
It's
didn't come out in their
true,
lifetime.
but I mean, that's because there was a sequel that came out to it in their lifetime, and of course,
Oh,
the
they've had
sequel to
awful sequels for Dirty Dancing.
did they?
Did they?
Well, I didn't know
They had
this.
like an awful remake, I think.
Oh, no. Well, I
Interesting,
Yeah.
think
but it
I mean,
it
from
wasn't with
being
Patrick Swayze and Jennifer Grey, was it?
I'm no, no, no,
Okay,
no, no. That is the OG.
yeah,
yeah, you can't
Which
speak for
also, like, if you watch that as a young girl, and
Yes,
then
you
you
can.
as a grown ass woman with children, perspective.
yeah,
It's just wild.
yeah, yeah. I agree with Ken that Chippendale sketch with
That was
Swayze is
hilarious.
amazing too.
Oh,
Yeah.
phenomenal.
Right, Dirty Dancing Havana Nights. I never saw it, but I do recall actually seeing that name now.
Oh, yeah.
Lots of people apparently remember it. Not
Yeah, I mean, I
favorably.
remember seeing the ads for it, and I'm thinking like, there is no way I would watch that.
Yeah,
I love
yeah,
the
yeah,
Sam Elliott love.
and it's true. Swayze is great in Ghost, but I think most of us would have to say that it's either Outsiders, Rumblefish, or probably Red Dawn is the greatest
Oh
movie.
god, I love Red Dawn.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
All right.
All right.
Are we dancing around the issues?
We are dancing around the issues,
We are
although I do
absolutely
want to
procrastinating.
yeah, we
Yep.
are procrastinating, but, before we get too deep into tonight's show, okay, so this is the totality. This is the one on the going from, south to north
The one that starts in
is
Maine.
yeah, yeah, well, it doesn't start in Maine, it ends in Maine, I think. I
Wait,
think it's
does the
coming
sun go from west to east?
well,
No, you're right. You're right.
yeah, okay. Yeah. So, this is the one that's coming in April. So if you're anywhere in the black with gray one, that band, you'll be in the totality. I mean, even if I stay here in Martinsburg, it's still gonna be like 95% covered. So, you're
Oh,
gonna see quite a bit.
No, but you want to get the whole thing.
Yeah, you wanna be
I'm
part of the totality.
Yeah.
Although I'm sure every place along this corridor for April is booked.
Well, that's why if you
so
know somebody,
Yeah.
you'll camp out on their land. And honestly, every place you could stay might be booked, but you only have to be there the uh for the eclipse, and then you could drive 100 miles
Yeah.
and find a place that you're going to stay if it wasn't convenient for you.
Yeah.
But I mean, there's also many, many major cities on there. Austin, Texas, Dallas, Fort Worth,
Buffalo.
St. Louis is really
Looks like, I
close.
think Cincinnati.
Indianapolis,
so I
yeah,
don't know if I'll
Cincinnati,
be in Tennessee when that happens,
not
actually.
Cincinnati, but Cincinnati's
That's fine.
just outside. But Cleveland is in it,
Yeah.
and Buffalo, Burlington, Vermont, Montpelier. Yeah, that's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure we're gonna go. Like I said, we're gonna go see it in. What'd you say? How you say it's pronounced? Oneida.
Oneida, I believe Oneida,
Did James
but
just tell me not to rap Sir Mix-a-Lot?
Oh, I don't know, but all our commenters like, we should all go to the same place and comment together. I love it. The solidarity is just beautiful, y'all. Thank you so much. I love
that's
this.
awesome. All right, so, before we get too deep into the night, remember, we have an official
Store.
merchandise shop called Blue Dog Design, run by our favorite person, AJ.
Hi.
So,
We do have a few designs. I went ahead and I put it on a hoodie because it's October. Bitches
it's
need
hoodie
some
month.
hoodies. Like,
We
that's the truth. That's what is going through my laundry right now. We do have the hoodies, t-shirts, and we have the mug right there with the yellow inside because that just seems extraordinarily appropriate for post-libertarians to have. Um, I've got a few other designs on there. As you can tell, I don't like Republicans. So, you scroll through and it says anything like anti-Republicans, that would be completely my doing. There's some of the little beanie hats that I like just because I happen to like them. And a couple of different bags. And these you can use for anything from grocery shopping to trick or treating.
great
So
stuff.
there we go. Thank y'all
I
so
don't
much.
we should have got our guest from last week a bag.
I know. Should have been one of
Uh,
those signs that said no Republican.
you
No,
know,
no,
I
no, the woke as fuck, I think
I
that
do like
Oh, in pink,
uh
please, in pink.
I do
Uh,
like the idea of we should be giving gifts out to our guests, to our special guests. So
very
that's a good idea.
it's a very special episode. I think
yes, I agree.
yes.
Yeah, definitely
Um,
it irritated a lot of people, but this episode's going to irritate even more people. So,
Oh, of
is
course.
it? It's
oh yeah.
fun.
It's
So
all about War and
here's the
Peace.
fun part of the episode, folks, right there.
Yep.
Shop. And all of the money is going to go towards getting me and my family out of Tennessee because it's fucking terrible here. We're going to go to Colorado where, I don't know, they seem to believe in human rights just a little bit more than Tennessee does. And it's getting worse because we've got like this whole law enforcement training center coming to Nashville. Essentially, it's our own little cop city. So Tennessee's only getting worse. So
Oh,
help us
sounds
get
like
out. There's a
yeah, so,
QR code.
yeah, scan the QR code, right there on the screen. I got it in 2 places, up here in the top, left, and, the bigger image here, if you just take out your phone, take a picture of that QR code, it'll take you right to the Etsy shop for Blue Dog Design. Check it out. It's a lot of great stuff. I've got the T-shirt. I'll probably get the hoodie because I love hoodies, um, and I need something for the winter. So, uh, but no more procrastinating. It's time to get real. And no, not the real world. That's a bad TV show. But so last week, last what Saturday, we had a massive terror attack in Israel, unprecedented level. Like I think the last estimate is like 1,300 people were killed by Palestinian
Yeah,
Hamas.
about
Um,
1,300 killed. Significantly, families were killed together. Babies were beheaded. Um, People were burned. Uh, and there was a music festival that was right over the border that essentially was a target for a lot of people who were kidnapped. And
yeah,
so, I mean, just it's about as horrific as you can imagine.
it was. I mean, we said it last week. It's Israel's 9/11.
It
Just the
is.
sheer size of the attack, proportion of population, all that stuff. Um,
And also being Israel has suffered. It's their individual largest day of casualties, uh, but this was also the largest attack focused on civilians. right? I mean, Israel has been in many wars
Yeah,
where there were military targets that were targeted. In this case, it was, all civilians.
yeah. I mean, it's a soft target. I mean, nothing condones what Hamas did, um, but since I will always say that in when it comes to conflict, the first casualty, well, other than the people that were killed in the surprise attacks, the casualty ends up being the truth. We get a lot of manipulation from media, from actors that want to see sow dissent amongst the people.
And by actors, you don't mean celebrities. You mean people who are
Mm,
political actors
yeah,
in the fray.
political actors, media actors, people that are, because I mean we're seeing if you go on social media now, you're seeing just fantastical stories about what's going on, and it's really at a point now we've gotta start cutting through the bullshit because we're seeing so much, being put out there. The Russians have their hands in it, Chinese have their hands in it, even the Israelis have their hands in it. They have.
Well, and even independent people, because, you know, people should understand just in general the way the YouTube economy works. If you're monetized, you get paid roughly $5 for every 1,000 views you get.
Yep.
So, one of the things that happened very early on was a person took a video of a celebration in Algeria that was from the World Cup. And if you don't know a lot, the Algerian flag looks a lot like the Palestinian flag. It's the same colors. The Palestinian flag actually doesn't have the crescent and star on it. The Algerian flag does, but most people look at that and they think Muslim. So this person put that up as a video saying these are Palestinians celebrating all the deaths in Israel.
Oh, no, it wasn't Algeria, it was Western Sahara, I believe.
Was it?
That's their flag is the one looks like the Palestinian, but it has a crescent and star in it. Um,
Okay.
it was yeah, it
Maybe.
was
I
a
mean,
different.
but they weren't in the World Cup.
No,
So this was a World Cup party. Um, and
yeah.
the Algerian flag is
It's
green,
green
black,
it's
and red.
no, it's, white and green and a red, crescent and star. I know
I
my
think
flag.
there's a little black in it too, but I'm pretty sure it was Algeria. There may have been another one as well.
Yeah,
But the point was that somebody put up a video that clearly was not taking place in Palestine, in Gaza, or anywhere else, and it didn't take place after the attacks. It took place like a year ago.
yeah,
But he got hundreds of thousands of views, and so the person who put it up made like $6,000 in ad revenue
yep,
by putting that video up. So it's not just all the bad actors,
and
it's
it's
all the people who have YouTube as a side hustle who also want to put the worst stuff online because they know that that will get views.
exactly, and that's actually still driving the narrative that, after the attacks, there were celebrations, and, that was I kept hearing that after the initial attacks, and
Right.
I will say, I mean, one of the things I will say about this attack is that a lot of people are trying to treat this as something that's happened in a vacuum, like that this was just kind of the opening salvo of something and is this some a different thing of what's going on? Yes and no. I mean, it's a different tactic in how you prosecute a conflict. But this conflict's been going on since the 1940s, really, since the partition and when the original invasion happened of Israel, and what the Arabs call the Nakba, where they were driven out of their homes within Palestine, what they considered Palestine at the time. Um, that was the opening of this. This is just a continuation of all the stuff that's been going on over the years.
I mean, right. If you want to go back through history,
Yeah,
who's the first people who lived there? Right.
yeah. I mean, we're gonna go. Yeah, well, I mean, that's the. I mean, this is again.
And
There
this is
are
right.
no
That
good
it's
answers to what we're going through.
There are no good answers in terms of who is the rightful owner of what land,
Yeah.
other than, what do we think about the United States, right? Who should own the land of the United States? Should it be the tribes that lived here originally? Or is there a point in time at which we say, okay, before there was legitimate law and order in the area, and you can argue people went to war, they took things, they shouldn't have done that. But there's a point in time at which the state happened. And I'll put it in the context that, the Zionist movement, the idea of a homeland for the Jews, is one that has been around for 2,000 years, since the Romans kicked all the Jews out of what they called Judea. And Jews went and settled around the world. And in fact, there's even a word for it, the diaspora. But in that time, Jews have always celebrated a holiday called Passover, which people probably know. The Last Supper is actually Jesus and the disciples celebrating Passover. Passover is a little bit before Easter. And every year in a Passover ceremony, for 2,000 years, Jews always said, next year in Jerusalem. So for 2,000 years, there was a plan of going back to their homeland. Of course, once the British got involved, they fucked it up because the British have
No.
ruined world history everywhere that they've gone. And the British issued this document. In fact, Jews at one point in time had talked about making the new homeland in Argentina. There was a very
That would have been
significant
awkward.
movement to do that. But in the end, the British said, you know what? We control this area and we're going to give it to you.
Yeah.
And you can argue whether or not the British really controlled the area legally, but militarily, there's no question. The British did indeed control the area.
Yeah, they had a the mandate
Yeah,
of
exactly. So
yeah.
the Jews, so there was a homecoming, and it wasn't in a vacuum. It was after the Holocaust. When 40% of the world's Jews were killed, and there weren't many. There were only 15 million Jews in the world before the Holocaust, and after there were only 9 million. And that's including the populations of the United States, every other country in the world, Russia, a lot of Jews were killed in Russia too, but all the places that you can imagine, they were all killed. And so there had been, and one of the reasons Zionism has always had this long standing support is that everywhere that it's been, if there are any people who are biblical scholars, you'll know that there's a reference to Jews being a stiff-necked people. We don't bow our heads. We make terrible servants of kings. And as a result, Jews have generally been in trouble with absolute monarchies for the entire history of the world. And as a result, people in power have used anti-Semitism as a weapon to stop the Jews from opposing them. The pogroms in Europe, the Inquisition, throughout history, you can find all sorts of examples of anti-Semitism. And so after the Holocaust, after the worst thing that had ever been committed upon the Jewish people, the Jews said, we have to have a state. Because there's this concept in Judaism called tikkun olam, it means to repair the world. And all Jews think that their job is to make sure that things that are broken in the world are fixed. Now, if you ask two Jews how to do something, you're going to get three different opinions. Okay. We don't agree even with ourselves. So, some Jews will say, well, I want to get involved in environmentalism because I want to fix the world that way. And some people say, oh, I want to be involved in the labor movement because I want people to be able to earn a living. And some Jews will say, well, you know what? I want people to be healthy. And so I'm going to be involved in medicine. Jews all find different ways to complete the idea of tikkun olam, the idea that we are repairing the world. However, there's always been a realization that the most important thing to do, if you're going to do that, is to survive as a people. And that was threatened.
Yeah.
especially in World War II during the Holocaust in the camps. There's this very sort of controversial opinion because there were some Jews who felt like the best way for them to survive the camps was to work with the Nazis. Say, okay, I'll be a camp boss. I'll do what I have to do. And not for a long time, but for a little time, there was some controversy about what do you do about those people. And in the end, Judaism sort of came to the opinion that the ultimate duty of every Jew is to survive. And so if you're in a situation where you think everybody's going to die and I might be able to survive if I do this thing, that's the obligation that has been put upon you by your faith, so that you can be the person who tells the story of how terrible it was. So when Israel was formed, Jews had experienced this terrible situation and they said, okay, everywhere else in the world that we've been, when we've relied on other people for our safety and security, it hasn't worked out. And so in this one space, we're going to say, you know what? We don't care what anybody else thinks. Here inside this border, we are going to be responsible for our own security. And in the beginning, Israel did not contain the West Bank and it did not contain Gaza. But all the Arab powers, like 2 days after Israel came
Yep.
into existence, attacked Israel at once. And Israel won that war. They occupied, and I will get the dates a little bit wrong as to when they occupied each part. But, eventually they took the West Bank, they took the Golan Heights, they took the entire Sinai
Yep.
Peninsula, including Gaza. Uh, and those areas were taken, at least in the beginning, with the idea that it made Israel safer to have this geographical buffer between them and the countries that kept invading them. And the Arab League did continue to invade Israel all the way through until the mid 70s.
Yep.
And
1973 was the last one.
hmm,
1973 was the last official war.
right. Uh, and there was uh, for Israel won every conflict. Uh, Now, as speaking people and libertarians, I will tell you, Israel is very much not a bastion of libertarianism.
Oh, no.
It is a very authoritarian government. One of the things that's required because because of the constant threat and making sure that Israel is safe, everybody is required to do 2 years of military service, men and women, and everybody
And
fights. Okay,
and
women.
to a point, though, and this is what I've heard, justification for, maybe not kids, but civilian, casualties is that in Israel, everyone is military, or at least has done military service, so
Yeah,
that they are military trained in casualties. I mean, yeah, it
everybody who grew up there. Immigrants, if you come to Israel after the age of 30, if you're 31 or older,
yeah,
you don't do military service. So, as an example, I have a startup now. The CEO and COO both emigrated from the United States to Israel, but they came in their mid 30s. And so they were too old for military service.
yeah,
But certainly, easily 50% of the country has done military service and is in what we would call the reserves, right? They have to do 2 weeks of training every year where they go out and they practice and do all the things. And you're seeing that happen right now, right? Israel has mobilized, not really mobilized a lot, but they're able to call up 300,000 troops like that.
yeah,
And part of that, what's interesting is that you'll see Israeli citizens coming home because they were called up. And so at Ben Gurion Airport, flights are running nonstop with people flying back in because they've been called up into armed force services.
yeah.
The the core of everything, and there's a few good statements around this. I said Israel is an incredibly authoritarian regime because they have military service, private gun ownership is mostly illegal. Um, but the other things about it that are very interesting, and these are sort of some true things. And like David said, the first first casualty in war is the truth. But these are some facts that pre-existed the war and are very easy to look up. If you are an LGBTQT Palestinian, you live in Israel. You don't live in the Palestinian territory.
Yeah.
Uh, if you are a woman with an opinion, you live in Israel. You don't live in the Palestinian territory. Because although it is an authoritarian government, it's authoritarian with the idea of a humanistic approach that all people are fundamentally valuable, equal, etc. And that is very different. Uh, and so Israel's mission is to protect that concept, protect the idea of, again, the idea of liberalism. And it's very interesting because, although Israel is somewhat of a secular state, uh, even in Israel, the Orthodox Jews are not the majority. Most are either conservative or reform. And so there is this idea, old Judaism, right? Orthodox Judaism is as sexist as any other old religion. Uh, People who know the story of Sodom and Gomorrah will recall, and I'll try to tell the story with a little humor, that God told Abraham that he was going to destroy the city of Sodom because it was evil. And Abraham, being the first Jew, said, well, let's bargain a little bit. And he said, God, what if there's 100 good men in the city of Sodom? Will you destroy it? And he's like, all right, if it's 100. He said, what if there's 50? If I can find 50. Abraham bargains him down to 10 good men. They can't find 10 good men. Lot and his family are saved by angels. And just to be clear, I don't really believe any of that stuff happened. But I'm aware of the stories and the tradition. However, that number of 10 men, Orthodox Jews believe that you can't pray unless you get 10 men together. Orthodox Jews don't have women involved in their prayer circles. They have another saying. It said, God counts the tears of women. And so it's a different way of measuring it. Orthodox Judaism is incredibly sexist and small-minded, and I'm not trying to make excuses for it. What I'm trying to say is that although Israel is a state with most Jews, the extremist elements of their religion have been rejected in favor of governance. So, in this scenario, Israel only thinks about one thing, and it's safety. And, people can argue that Gaza has been a terrible place to live. And I think it has been for quite a while. But it's a terrible place to live because attacks keep coming out of there. And Israel's number one obligation is to keep Israel safe. And
So
so, in that respect, are they making a distinction between the citizens of Israel and others? Absolutely, they are.
yeah,
But
they are, but,
go ahead.
here's my question about all of this is, collective punishment, is that right to do in this case? 'Cause, the
But
what is happening in Gaza.
it's not punishment, because if it were punishment, they would be hunting the people down and killing them.
I
So what
mean,
this is establishing a safety zone. And, it sucks for the people who lived there, but and it sucks for them that they were and I think the Palestinian people were in general held prisoner by Hamas,
well, yeah, I
right?
mean, remember, Hamas was formed because the Israelis didn't they have this territory. They occupy this
Yep.
technically occupy this
Yeah.
territory, and they didn't want to do the and it probably wouldn't gone over well either if they had provide the goods and services to run several refugee camps. I can't remember how many. I think they're like 8 refugee camps that are make up the Gaza Strip. They didn't want to take care of that, so they outsourced it to groups like the Muslim Brotherhood, which ended up forming Hamas, that did the goods and services, that provided for the families within the Palestinian within the Gaza at the very least. And eventually, there's still simmering anger. I mean, again, this is a conflict that's been going on for generations. It was an easy sell that all you're seeing is God or Hamas providing you goods and services, power, electricity, all that stuff. Even if it's coming from, it technically was coming from Israel. Israel is providing it. It was done in Hamas's name. So people associated Hamas with being the good guys and providing them the stuff. And then, Hamas said, well, the Israelis are really, they're overreacting to like 3 or 4 rockets going into their territory. They come in, they destroy a bunch of buildings. You're building resentment from the Palestinian perspective. You're building resentment, and there's an investment in protecting Hamas because they're the ones who provide you the goods and services. Just like the Israeli government, for the people in the Israeli government under Israeli protection, getting their goods and services from the Israeli government. The attack that they saw this last weekend was an attack towards their very safety, their very and this is I mean, it's going on both sides, and I get that Israel wants a buffer, but you've closed off the border to Egypt, and Egypt's closed off the border as
Well,
well.
you can't say that Israel closed off the border to Egypt.
Well, they originally closed. They've had a presence on the border because of all tunnels and all that stuff. You're
But
driving everyone to southern
the,
Gaza.
the the reason that no Palestinian can get into Egypt is because of Egypt.
Oh yeah, Egypt now is not wanting because again they don't. None of the countries are surrounding Israel
All
right now
all
don't
the
want the
Arabs
Palestinians.
all the Arabs hate the Palestinians, right? And that's been true for forever. The Palestinians are the gypsies of the Middle East. Okay, and there are east of Western Jordan, east of the West Bank, is a
Mhm.
large Palestinian population. Uh, they
North of
could,
north of Israel in Lebanon is a large Palestinian population.
yep.
Syria's got Palestinians. The Egyptians do have Palestinians. The Jordanians have they don't want more because it is a destabilizing force. One, um, like King Hussein of Jordan did not like having the Palestinians there because they agitated for Jordan to do more as far as invading Israel, and Jordan learned their lesson about invading Israel. They
We lost
didn't
the
even
West
get their
Bank.
airplanes off the ground before they were blown off the ground.
Well, also, the Palestinians, if Jordan were a semblance of a democracy, if all the Palestinians went there, they would have a lot of political power.
They would. It's part of the reason why I not really all the reason why the Lebanon is a mess. Lebanon is a mess because there are even more groups within the borders of
Right.
Lebanon that are making that a mess. But um, you know, is Lebanon's also paid a price because of the Palestinians that have been within their territory attacking Israel, and then Israel coming in and attacking Lebanon
Yeah.
over those attacks, Hezbollah specifically. But
Yeah. No, I mean, it's definitely true. The southern border of Lebanon is occupied territory at this point in time.
mhm,
Again, to sort of prevent terrorist attacks from coming in. Uh, the there's somebody mentioned gold in my ear. There's a couple sort of uh, kitschy statements, but I, one of the ones that I believe that is true is if the Palestinians laid down their arms, there would be peace. It might not be the peace that they want, but it would be peace. And if the Israelis laid down their arms, they would be dead. And I think generally people would agree with that. Hamas has as its charter the destruction of the state of Israel. What they did in those terrorist attacks, that wasn't an accident. It was
oh no,
specifically what they're designed to do. And when Israel turned, and let's be fair too, that Netanyahu did enable Hamas quite a bit,
Well,
because
Netanyahu, I mean, this is a different thing with Netanyahu. Netanyahu has benefited from these things. Now, this one might be a little bit different because the scale of the attack, but throughout his reign in Israel, and I think it's what 3 different terms as prime
yep,
minister,
yep,
um, he's been able to use Hamas and attacks, used Hezbollah and attacks that when his I mean, he's kind of the wag the dog prime minister. He uses those attacks or uses any pretense to go after to
yeah,
bolster his popularity within Israel, and it's always been razor thin for Benjamin Netanyahu. He's not like a
right. I
uh,
mean, he's had
ultra
stretches when he's
popular.
been more popular than now. Now he's as unpopular as he's ever been, but he
Mhm.
put together this crazy coalition of a lot of crazy people. And what's interesting about it is, I mean, there's a few things about it. So first of all, we can't just put this in the bubble and not talk a little bit about Saudi Arabia and
Mm.
the deal that was about to happen,
I think
where
that's probably one of the flashpoints of what happened is that they know that this deal's coming, and they
right,
wanted to throw the wrench into it.
right. And it used to be, to put it in context, all the Arab nations agreed that Israel would be destroyed eventually through some form or another. And then the first country to really come to the table was Egypt. People remember
Camp David.
Menachem.
Yes.
Well, the kids won't remember, but Dave remembers because he's old,
Yes.
and
Yeah.
Pepperidge Farm remembers that Jimmy Carter hosted a summit with Menachem Begin and Anwar Sadat, and they made peace, Egypt and Israel, right? And when we talk about it, we're talking about countries that have been, you know, enemies since the Exodus.
Yeah.
You know, one of the oldest documented things that's happened. And I don't believe the Exodus, I don't believe all the story, right? I don't believe that Moses originally had 15 commandments and dropped five or
That
any of
was
that other.
awesome.
Exactly. But I do believe that there
10
was an, yeah, I
10
do believe
commandments.
exactly. But, but I do think that, and that was amazing. So since then, there's been a rush. Other countries, UAE, Qatar,
Mhm.
Qatar, um,
Morocco.
Morocco, other countries have made peace with Israel, and Saudi Arabia was about to do it.
Yep.
It was there on the cusp, and Saudi Arabia has always been, or because of their wealth, Saudi Arabia has been a huge player in Middle Eastern politics. However, in terms of population, Saudi Arabia is not the smallest, but it's not a large country in terms of population. Egypt is much larger. Iran and Iraq are much larger
Yeah.
in terms of population. And Iran wants to be the most influential Middle Eastern nation. You can argue Iran's not, let's say the most, you argue Iranians aren't Arabs either.
No, they're not.
But
There's a corner of the country that is, but for the
yeah,
most part, they're not.
but they want to be involved in that. So, I mean, we could say oil producing nations if we want, because that certainly figures into all of this as well. That Iran does not want Saudi Arabia to be the number one country. And so for Iran, who has supported Hamas all this time, the ability to break the deal between Israel and Saudi Arabia, how would you do it? Considering everybody working for it, probably the easiest way to do it is to get Israel to do something terrible. The easiest way to get Israel to do something terrible is to do something terrible to Israel. And it Israel has all the time been very consistent in that their response is always the safety of Israel. And there's been a lot of controversial things that Israel has done. A great example is long before the first Gulf War, Iraq had a nuclear power plant that was going to
Yep.
go online and have the ability to create uranium and plutonium to make nuclear weapons. And the Israelis destroyed it.
It
And it
was being
really,
built with American help too.
Yeah, it really pissed off the rest of the world, and it pissed off the Americans.
Yeah, because we dumped money into it.
But this is the consistent thing. The safety of Israel is the place where Jews say, we're not going to compromise with anybody else. This is our home. We're going to defend our home. You don't have to like it. You don't have to care about it. You don't have to give us your blessing or anything like that. But it's a small area the size of friggin' New Jersey. Okay. And you can argue that,
It's nicer than New Jersey.
well, yeah, I will agree with that. But you can certainly argue that there were Palestinians who were living there beforehand.
Mhm.
But the population of Israel now, compared to what it was in 1949, and the wealth that is coming out of the country of Israel is unparalleled. And so, I mean, that's where we are, and it's a damn shame that Gaza is suffering this point. I think that there is uh, that there's not a it's not the best. I don't know if I can say it's not the best answer because I don't know what the best answer is. What I know is that the immediate job, the immediate charge for Israelis is the safety of Israel. And if this is the thing that you have to do it, you have to say, look, and here's one of the things that the Palestinians have been complaining about recently. So traditionally, if a missile was fired, and so here's another interesting thing to say. So, we hear about all these rockets that are firing from Gaza into Israel. You also hear about all these troops that are massing on the border. Why aren't the rockets firing at the troops that are going to invade? And the reason why, these rockets cannot be aimed. You
No.
can point them in a direction, but they are not guided missiles.
Yeah, they're dumb rockets.
They're
They're
dumb rockets.
yeah.
They
Well, they're
kill.
the ones that are made from like the pipes that are supposed to be for water and whatnot, right?
Well, they are. I mean, they get missiles from a lot of different sources, but guidance equipment is a lot more expensive than just rocket material.
Okay.
Where these missiles are made, there's no question that some have come from Iran. A lot of them have come from Iran. But they kill a lot of Palestinians who are living in Israel. There are 2 million Arabs happily living in Israel. Um, and part of what your problem is, if you're Israel, you say, we're not going to allow the rockets to be fired anymore. How do you do that? I mean, how do you do that against people who are not even firing aimed rockets? They're firing dumb rockets at you. And it's got to be a large physical barrier, which gives you a better time and space to intercept the rockets.
Yeah.
And even that's not going to work perfectly, but it'll be better. I will say, uh, Iron Dome did pretty well, all things considered, but it was overwhelmed at points. There were too many rockets. So, part of what you have to do there is make sure that their rocket manufacturing places aren't capable of doing that. And one other important point here is that why is it not happening from Jordan? Why is it not happening from Lebanon? Why is it not happening from any of the other countries? And the reason why is because they don't want to deal with the consequences of it. Whereas here, and let's point out too that the leader of Hamas does not live in Gaza,
No.
right? He lives in Oman, I believe. Doesn't even live in the Middle East. And yet he's ordering all these people to do all these terrible things in his name. And and my take on this is most of the people in Gaza don't support what's happening. They don't want to leave their homes. They think this is probably the worst thing that's ever happened to them. But they didn't really have a choice. And here's where the parts of it that get shitty get really shitty. The reason why the Gazans were able to be held captive by Hamas is because of all the organizations around the world that have been anti-Israel. Because if they'd really wanted to protect the Palestinian people, they would have been saying, let's get rid of Hamas. Let's have fair elections. Let's break things up so that the people can actually prosper. One of the great examples, and again, these are sort of simple facts that people can look up. Israel occupied Gaza up until 2005, and Israelis lived there. And when Israel agreed to give Gaza back, the Israeli army took Israelis who had built homes there and forcefully made them leave. They brought them back. There were a series of greenhouses in Gaza that were owned by Israel, and they were incredibly productive. They produced fruits and vegetables that were sold throughout Europe. It was an enormous amount of money. And when the Israelis left, they had to leave it behind. So they gave it to the Palestinians and said, here you go. There is this thing. We don't have anything to do with it, but at least you'll be able to still produce cheap fruits and vegetables here, and we'll buy them from you instead of having to import them from everywhere else. And you can still sell them everywhere else. Israel was playing sort of a Marshall Plan, which, the Marshall Plan was the plan for the rest of the world after World War II, saying, look, Germany and Japan always attack other countries. How do we stop them from attacking? We want to make them so wealthy that it's not worth it for them to attack other countries. So Israel said, look, we're going to give you this stuff. You make money with it. Okay. Because we think that when you make money and we start buying things from you, we're going to start becoming good trading partners. And then as we become good trading partners, we're going to be better neighbors. And part of giving control of Gaza to Hamas was based on the idea that if Hamas had to govern, if they had to do sanitation and power and water and be responsible to the people, that they would learn responsibility, that they would learn the burdens of rulership in this capacity. So when Israel left and left the greenhouses behind, the Palestinians in charge destroyed them all because they didn't want, and there certainly were some that were destroyed by mad Israelis, but at least half of them were destroyed by the Palestinians in charge because they didn't want the Palestinian people to have that kind of wealth. And so all the people who have been advocating for, Israel to be better, etc., have actually been hurting the Palestinian people because the best thing that could have happened for them was for them to focus on being prosperous and to focus on them having a good democratic state. There's this idea that in the history of the world, it's very rare for two democracies to go to war. You could find sort of some outside
Yeah,
examples, but in
democratic
general,
democratic peace is not quite a law of international affairs, but it holds up for the most part. There are a couple of
right. People who have comfortable lives don't want to see them ruined. And one of the greatest examples of that relatively recently in our history, right? The Serbians who these are people with an incredible militaristic tradition, uh, great esprit de corps, soldiers like the Spartans, right? They were ready for war. And when the Balkan War kicked off, Serbians kicked everybody's ass up until Monica Lewinsky gave Bill Clinton a blowjob. And he said, all right, we're going to get involved in this war to distract everybody. And so what did the Americans do? They blew up every bridge in Sarajevo, and they dropped these really cool bombs made out of aluminum foil. And as it turns out, if you make little pieces of aluminum foil 2 inches long by 1 inch wide, and you surround an electrical power plant with them, the electrical power plant burns itself out.
yeah.
So they turned off all the power in Sarajevo and they destroyed all the bridges. And then the Serbians, who are these hardcore warriors, right, do all that stuff. They're like, well, that's too inconvenient for us. We're not willing to fight anymore. And they came to the table. So the idea was if you made the Palestinians wealthy, they wouldn't want to fight either. Because and I don't want to play into the stereotype here, but I'm Jewish, so I'm allowed to say it. Listen, as Jews, we want to make money. We want you to make money with us. Okay. We want everybody to get rich together because then we've got a lot of stuff tied together. But what Hamas said is that the Jews want you to make money so that you will put it in the banks and they'll own you. That's where the fundamental disconnect is. And you look at the countries like Egypt, who has made a deal with Israel. They're starting to better. Egypt's a little bit of a shit show right now itself.
Well,
Have problems with the Muslim Brotherhood, etc.
and the thing is, a lot of the stuff that's coming into Gaza is coming through Egypt,
Right.
coming through the Sinai, through the tunnels into Gaza. And um, for the you know, for those people who are not quite down with what's going on in Gaza, there are tunnels that go from Egypt into Gaza. They smuggle things into it, weapons, these missiles, whatever they can get into the Gaza Strip. And part of the reason why the Israelis want to take over the top half of the Gaza is to go after these tunnels and knock them out. Um, Honestly, probably 3 weeks after Israel stops this, those tunnels will be rebuilt, and uh, things will be going back the way they were. I, for a lot of this, though, I mean, the it does seem like every time the Palestinians, whether it's in the West Bank or the Gaza Strip, um, start to get on their feet and start to do things like one of my dear friends, Holly Jordan, is works for ANERA, American Near East Refugee Assistance. Um, she has been to Palestine several times the last few years. Um, providing medical assistance, providing educational tools, things like that to building schools, building clinics, things like that. Um, and it's almost as soon as this stuff gets built, it gets destroyed. Um, and the question I have, because I'm watching what's going on with Gaza, you're destroying the top half of Gaza. You're pushing 1.1 million people, and Gaza was like the 18th most densely populated area of the world.
Yeah, no,
And
you could
you're
argue it's the most
squashing
densely populated.
yeah, you're squashing them down into a smaller area that doesn't have the infrastructure to support all these people. You're telling people, you know, part of it is the telling people who are in hospitals that they've got to go, people who are on ICU in the northern half of Israel or the northern half of Gaza Strip, being forced to leave to go down to the southern where there is no hospital for them to go to. There's no infrastructure there. Right now, they're being kinda held in this siege where they don't have, any fuel, food, anything that's coming into the country, water. Um, you're condemning these people, now it's an inconvenience. In a week from now, it's going to be death sentence
Well,
for a lot of people.
I mean, I think we would agree that if the Egyptian border was open, everybody could get out. It's not far.
Well, it could get out, but what do you I mean, what's on the other side of the Egyptian border?
On the other side of the Egyptian border is no blockade. Everybody who cares about the Palestinians so much should be helping them right now. Set up refugee camps, okay? Because the number that we're talking about, it's not actually that big, right? 6.7 million refugees left Syria. We're not talking about anything like that.
But they were going into a populated area, or at least an area that had some sort of infrastructure in Turkey, into, northern Iraq, that have some sort of infrastructure. You go south of Israel, and you're
It's a
talking
desert.
about the Sinai Peninsula, there's nothing there. There's nothing for them to build, there's no infrastructure, there's nothing there that, we
The capacity of the world to accept them there and support them there, it is not, I mean, it's a push. It's hard, but it could be done.
so what becomes of Gaza? Does it become just a
I think I mean,
they
I
raise
think
it and
it's
they absorb it into Israel? And then what becomes of the
I think
West
it's gonna
Bank?
become a militarized zone. It's going to be like 2000, before they gave it back in 2005, when the Israeli army patrolled the streets. And there were certainly lots of people who complained about the Israeli army patrolling the streets. On the other hand, they didn't complain about the fact that there was Israeli system of justice, where so for one of the examples is Gaza is one of the worst places for sexual assault by husbands upon wives, because there are no laws against sexual assault in Gaza right now. Okay, the Israelis didn't have that scenario, and so the rights of women, the rights of the oppressed, be better. Now, freedom is better than anything else. And so I think that, Gaza deserves a chance to be free. But so long as there are attacks coming from Gaza against Israel, and here's the thing, right? We've been down the road where we got really close to peace several times. Oslo is probably the closest.
Mhm.
Um, but in Oslo, the Oslo agreements, it's with Yasser Arafat, who most people remember, the PLO. At the
Yep.
time, the PLO is recognized as the people. When Yasser Arafat died, he was a billionaire. Okay, because all the money that people had sent to help the Palestinians, he kept a lot of it because he didn't want them to be wealthy. He didn't want them to be content, because content people make terrible revolutionaries.
Well, and I will say that to me, this isn't. Yeah, I termed the episode "Holy War," "Unholy War." This war really doesn't have anything to do with religion. I mean,
Right.
it is
I
the
mean,
it's
I,
about control. It's about it's everything
no, but
with politics is
I
about
will
control.
disagree with that, because a lot of the problem is that you're talking about what offends them about Israel. It's not so much being Jewish; it's women having equal rights, and that's a religious issue.
I don't think it's that. I mean, it stems from the fact that they had a bunch of people foisted upon this land that took over the land.
If
They
it were
left.
that terrible, why do gay Palestinians live in Israel?
Oh, yeah, I mean, there are, gay Saudis live everywhere else. I mean, it's not a bastion for social rights. They haven't quite got to
And
that
you can't
level of
say that's not religious.
I think it's cultural. I really do.
I mean, it would be pretty hard to distinguish between culture and religion in religious states, right? And all the Arab countries, maybe not Egypt, but most of them are religious states, right? I mean, a great example would be, if your country has a law against blasphemy, you are a religious state. So most of the Arab countries in that place are religious states. And now, does everybody subscribe to the full length idea of, the lesser jihad? Maybe not. But most people would agree at that point in time, because of the religious thing about it, that, yeah, blasphemy should be punished. And that's where the difference is. And, I talked about the idea that, if you get two Jews together, you're going to get three opinions. Okay. Especially about religion. Like, the religious conflicts in Israel are unbelievable. Like the whole thing, the Orthodox don't want anybody to be able to go to the movies on Saturday. All these crazy rules, but they fight against those things. Okay, the religious law is 99% non-existent.
Well, it's
They're
personal. Like,
right.
for most people, religion is personal, and this is about control. The Palestinians want to control their people, to make them do the things they want them to do, to fall into line, to do, to make war against Israel if they so choose, or to continue to pay their taxes so that the fat cats of Hamas will get fatter. Um, Israel's the same way. I mean, yes, security is the overriding concern, but it's still about control. It's still about controlling what Israel is.
Sure. And I will say that for sure, Israel is conscientious of the fact that left to natural laws of evolution, the Arabs in Israel, who are Israeli citizens, will outnumber the Jews in 2 generations, if not faster.
Yeah.
It's interesting because, there's sort of a general thing around the world. The more educated a population is, the fewer children they have in a family. And
The
that's why,
idiocracy.
huh?
The idiocracy.
Well, but it's also,
Everyone's
you think about resources and
yeah.
what you can do for your family and stuff like that. And so, most Jews come from a place where, I mean, first of all, right, uh, Jews have been active in the feminist movement for a long time. Uh, Loretta Lynn talked about it in her famous song, "The Pill." Pregnancy is often used by the patriarchy, by men, to keep women imprisoned.
Women.
And, that's just, I, I don't feel like I'm making that up. I
No.
see AJ nodding along there. And so, in this situation where, you get all these feminists, Jewish feminists coming in and, birth control everywhere, stuff like that, you're talking about an area with, if Israel didn't have immigration, the Jewish population would have negative growth. Now, there is a movement, and one of my friends is part of it, where they're trying to convince Jews to have lots of children. It's not going very well. It just, some people feel the calling to have a big family, but for most people, two's a lot, and three is more, and four or five. Yes, AJ.
When I went to the doctor to confirm the second the second pregnancy, I went ahead and confirmed that we could tie my tubes because that was 2 of them. I was automatically I'm outnumbered, right?
Right.
And not to mention the fact that I already knew I mean, Charlie was 4.5 when Colin was born, so, like, I already knew how expensive I already knew what I was getting into. So I'm with you. Most of the younger generation they're not interested in having kids anyway because they're too busy trying to take care of themselves. Something you said on the patriarchy try to control women with pregnancy. Well, yeah, I mean that's the easiest way to do it. If I'm knocked up and I can't do anything about it, well, I'm very limited in what I can do. And then after the baby's born, I'm very limited in what I can do. I mean, my ex-husband did the same thing.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah.
And so, for me, it's hard to say that that's cultural and not religious, because
Mm.
part of Islam involves a heavy emphasis on the husband being the master of the house.
Well, I mean, that's kind of a feature of a lot of religions that
I mean, I would argue that Christians have moved away from that. Yeah, no
No,
question.
they haven't. No,
No,
they
all right,
mm,
haven't.
fair.
No.
I would argue maybe the Pope has moved away from it, but yeah, you're right. You're right. Southern Baptists certainly still believe that men were created in God's image and women were made from Adam's rib and therefore meant to be subservient.
which is a mistranslation, but that's another
It is
story
a
for another day.
mistranslation.
Yes,
So many mistranslations.
that
Wonder who
somehow
did
favor
that.
the same people.
Yep.
Yeah,
Bet it wasn't a woman.
Yeah, right.
but, yeah, not quite breaking news. It happened a few hours ago, but, noted about
Okay.
Suzanne Summers. That's sad.
Yeah.
But, we'll wrap this up here in a moment, but what I mean,
What is the best
what is
solution? What is the end game?
there is no best solution to this. I think there are a
I
bunch of
mean,
bad solutions. There's a
I,
best solution for Israel.
I actually do think there's a best solution, and it's pretty simple. Okay, first of all, so remember I said that Israel's occupied southern Lebanon. Actually, I think it's the UN, right? UNIFIL or UNIFILO or whatever. The UN is
Yeah,
actually
they do now.
supposedly so. here's what the rest of the world could do. If they wanted to, they could take responsibility for Gaza and say, you know what, Israel, we're going to rule this area. We're going to have fair elections and all this stuff, but we're going to make sure that you don't get attacked from here. We're going to make sure that Gaza is filled with a peaceful situation. We're going to be responsible for all the security. The rest of the world doesn't want to do it. And so
No.
the problem is that the only choice then for Israel, in order to maintain its own safety, is to take actions into its own hands. Nobody else. I mean, the Saudis could have done it, right? The Egyptians could have done it. I mean, the Egyptians could have done it easily because there's a border there. Gaza is connected to it. They could have. Why not? Why not include Gaza as part of Egypt?
Yeah. I
Gaza,
mean, that's
Egypt doesn't want it.
yeah, Egypt doesn't want it. I mean, it's a large influx of people, and how do you deal with those people?
Right.
And it doesn't really address the issue of rockets coming over the border. You know, the Egyptians, yes, they have the peace treaty and everything, but if they take control of it, almost within hours would probably be in violation of the peace treaty because rockets be coming from Gaza.
Yeah.
And then, I mean, does Israel attack Egypt? I mean, it's attacked Lebanon before. It's attacked Syria and taken the Golan Heights before. I mean, it's not out of the realm, but now you're talking about Egypt, country of I think 90 million people.
An
Um,
enormous country.
yeah, um, it that changes things. And are they willing to take? Are they willing to take on the Israelis over, over Gaza?
No, I mean, definitely they don't want to.
And they
Uh,
don't, I don't know how, because even if you put the UN in charge there, I mean, you had Israelis on the streets patrolling the streets, and you were still getting
mhm.
attacks from Gaza.
When
Not as
Israel,
many, but
yeah, when
they
when
were.
Israel patrolled the streets, and this is sort of so we get into a larger scenario. There's a very good argument that the reason why Israel really invaded Iraq, why the U.S. really invaded Iraq after 9/11, everybody knows Iraq was not involved with what happened, right?
Oh yeah,
But what happened was the United States was being attacked. And so rather than have the attack happen in the United States, George Bush and evil mastermind Dick Cheney, who, I will call him evil, but I will also say that there's a mastermind there, said the best thing we can do to make the American people safe is to put the army, which is capable of defending itself, in a place where it's really easy for terrorists to drive and attack the army. And so they put the army in Iraq. You know, you could come up with a good reason for attacking Saddam Hussein. But what really happened was for the 8 years, I think, that we occupied Iraq, every terrorist came to attack the U.S. Army in Iraq,
yeah.
and no attacks happened on American soil. Now,
I mean, you had
that's really
attempts.
hard. I
Yeah, I
mean,
mean, you
yeah,
had.
right. You're right. You get that right. Richard Reed and a few others. But in general, the most of the really significant terrorist attacks were made against the army, which is capable of defending itself. Now, that's terrible for the people of Iraq. I'm trying to remember what the last estimate saw of civilian
Oh,
casualties in Iraq, but it's enormous.
yeah,
But the strategy of saying we don't want to fight on our territory, we want to fight on your territory, that's the real strategy behind the Iraq war. Israel and Gaza is going to be the same thing. There's going to be ambushes. The Israeli army will be under attack in Gaza.
hmm
However, the army is prepared to fight and do what it has to do to defend itself. And that makes Israel safer. And so
yeah.
I suspect that that's where we're going to go in the long term. I think that they are going to build a permanent 1 mile barrier between Gaza and Israel. And when I say here's the other interesting thing about it. So I'm not happy about this, but it is clear to me that Israel disregards a lot of the international law in terms of warfare, stuff like that.
Yeah.
I believe the Israelis may be using white phosphorus right now, which is
Oh,
a
yeah.
pretty terrible weapon. I suspect that what's going to happen is that they're going to build a 1 mile buffer zone, and then they are just going to put landmines all over the place. And
Yeah.
landmines are
Oh,
terrible. They
yeah.
are terrible. They are against all
They're
the
still
rules.
blowing up people in Laos. So,
Exactly. Exactly. On the other hand, it's going to be very clearly marked. It's essentially like salting the earth, which is a nice biblical thing to do. And I don't know what the correct answer is, but I think that Israelis will feel a lot safer doing that. And given that 1 mile buffer and saying that all the missiles that have to come through have to travel that extra mile, and all the tunnels that have to be dug that extra mile, that's a pretty big thing.
yeah. Well, I mean, are they going to do like a 1 mile buffer all the way around the country?
I don't know because
Because I mean, that's the thing. I mean, unless you're addressing the tunnel issue, I mean that's been a thorn in Israel's side for a long time. Those tunnels are sophisticated as hell.
they're sophisticated, but they're not a mile long. I mean, a mile long tunnel is
That's
a
a yeah. I
completely
mean, it's
different feat of engineering.
yep.
And so it would be hard to conceal that. And not to mention the fact that, once you really start looking for them, Israel didn't do a good job of looking for them beforehand, and it was built in a populated area. But if you want to look for a tunnel in a place where there's nothing else on the ground, you can do pretty significant scans, stuff like that.
Yeah.
And for that matter, why not detonate some serious ordnance there every now and then, just in case somebody is building a tunnel down in the ground and make it collapse.
Yeah. Yeah. To me, I don't think that there really is any good outcome. I mean, especially with what they're doing with the telling the hospitals to evacuate and things like that. Yeah, we can rally the international community to build, you know, another Gaza in
Yeah.
Egypt if we wanted to. That still would be, but Gaza's been there for decades. That they actually have buildings in Gaza. It's not like a traditional refugee camp, but it's also would take years for them to kind of replicate that in. And would you wanna stay? I mean, if you're a Palestinian and finally gets into Egypt, would you wanna stay in a Gaza-like city, or would you want to go, to the United States or wherever else? So,
Yeah. No, I mean, it's a great question. I would think that, if we were going to, uh, Janice makes a great point. There are currently American hostages being held in Gaza,
yep.
right? Where is the pressure from anybody else to get the hostages released?
Well, I mean, the US House still hasn't chosen a speaker, so they really I mean, they
But
have a temporary guy, but
it's not just the U.S.,
oh,
right?
yeah,
I mean,
Biden, yeah,
yeah, other nations could be doing things. Everybody, this is the real problem, is that nobody really has wanted to work for a solution that doesn't, in some way, or in the past, that doesn't in some way, with the exception of the United States, that doesn't in some way punish Israel. And all the movements. I mean, you saw sort of a lot of the reactions around the United States, essentially blaming Israel for what happened. Okay, and that's where things have really broken down. Is that at no point in time is anybody except for the Israelis and the Americans when they've done it holding a level of responsibility for this is a war. This is not This was not, just a terrorist action. These were armed light infantry
no,
battalions.
I mean, it is a war. There's still rules to war, though, and the stuff that Israel is doing right now is not kosher within the international law. I mean, when it comes to Geneva Convention and things like that. And you're right. Israel has quite often refused to accept any international ruling against its interests. And I will say that the United States does the same damn thing.
Sure.
Um, it's I don't know. I For me, it's hard to just sell the Gazans down the river on this thing, um, and to y- yeah, you could say it's punishment for the Israelis, but is compromise punishment?
I mean,
I mean, it depends on what you're compromising on, of course, but
exactly. It's pretty clear, right? I think that any examination of the facts, you'd have to say Israel is currently not trying to kill as many Palestinians as they could, right? If they wanted to, they could be dropping firebombs, burn the cities down, all that stuff.
I mean, they've already killed enough more Palestinians than were killed than Israelis were killed in the invasion, but
Sure.
uh,
But
I,
clearly, it's nowhere near what they could do if they wanted to kill people. Now, I think that when Hamas invaded, they killed as many people as they could.
well, killed and took hostage.
Killed and took
I think
hostage,
I
right?
think I mean, for a lot of it, take what you can and bring it back was the and then kill the rest.
Right.
And
I mean, right. We saw right. I mean, we saw the notes that were on the soldiers who were killed.
yeah,
Um, but clearly, if Israel wanted to, they could have leveled all of Gaza already.
yeah, I if they wanted to, they could make a level flat sheet of glass.
Yep.
Same with
Yeah,
the
exactly right.
West Bank.
Exactly right.
I
It's
mean, you're not
right.
gonna,
Right. I mean, you're
but I'm
probably
not gonna
not
give them
smart to
credit
detonate
for it
nuclear weapons
that
west
close
of
to them.
you.
Yeah,
Um, but right, Israel definitely does have nuclear weapons. I don't think anybody in the world really has much illusion about that.
no, no, that's
Israel,
the
well,
worst
but
kept
you know what?
secret in
Let's talk
international
about
affairs.
another thing too, right? Right when COVID broke out, Israel vaccinated all of Gaza at their own expense. Okay, they didn't do it. I mean, sure, they benefit from it because of the people coming over the border, but they could just as easily have closed the borders and said, "Yeah, you guys deal with COVID on your own."
Well, but let's be honest that the Israelis do also depend quite a bit on Palestinian labor
That's
within the country.
completely true.
So, that they aren't going after the West Bank as well because the West Bank it's run by different entity. There's
Right.
Palestinian Authority that really runs the show in the West Bank, and
Yep.
then the Gaza and Hamas that runs it in Gaza. Um,
And
you know,
that's going to be interesting because things in
and they
Gaza are going to get a lot worse for the Palestinians there. And is that going to make people in the West Bank really angry? It might.
It might, yeah. I mean, that's the other shoe to drop. There's other things that I'll be interested to see. What will be the Saudi reaction to all this? What will because of the peace treaty? I haven't heard anything. I saw Biden recently said that he doesn't see any concrete evidence that Iran was involved. I would say that Iran probably had some logistical the people were calling about that, $6 billion that was just released. That was
Yeah.
actually not even released yet, so,
Right.
that didn't have a factor in this attack. Now, I would say logistics support, training, things like that,
Yeah.
yes,
Yeah.
but not
I
not
think
the
intelligence as well.
yeah,
Um,
intelligence.
however, uh, I think that it's the Gerald Ford that's there, right? I don't know which fleet is that. That's the Sixth Fleet. Uh,
Yeah, whichever's based in Europe 'cause,
yeah.
5th Fleet's in Qatar.
Right.
So,
I think that they're there to discourage Iranian action.
the 5th Fleet is gonna discourage Iranian action. 5th
The
Fleet's,
ones
across
right,
the bay, so, I mean, they'll
right. I'm thinking in terms of intercepting long range missiles from Iran because Iran definitely does have guided missiles
yeah,
that could hit Israel.
yeah.
And if they decide to, You know, Gaza's pretty dense, but Tel Aviv is really densely populated too. And in many ways, it's the most offensive of all the Israeli cities.
Yeah.
I'm sure that Iran would love to drop a couple missiles in there.
I'm sure they I mean, well, I'm sure the regime would, but I think that they're smart enough to know that that would be, let it's not just it's not just Israel that would come after them, the United States would be there too, because you've got Lindsey Graham already
Right.
having a
Mhm.
his his back dog leg is kicking right now, just thinking about the idea of attacking Iran, so,
Yeah.
you know, but
The
all
nice
right.
thing about this is we don't have to solve it today because I guarantee you it's going to be the same
Oh,
issue next
yeah,
week.
uh, I
Should we
mean,
do the quiz?
I don't think it's gonna be that long. I mean, I don't think it's gonna be as long as what's going on with Russia and Ukraine, but it's gonna be I think it's gonna be a
Oh yeah, no, because
pressing
I think
issue.
Russia and Ukraine is going on for a while. I think Israel will probably do what they want to do, clear everything out, and be done by February or so.
Yep. All right. It's time for the quiz. All right, context clues. We got a vial and a syringe and all that stuff. We got Powerball. Would you
That's
like to see my Powerballs?
yeah.
And then the Capitol,
Yep.
the Den of Thieves. All right. This will the first question won't surprise you. Which country was devastated by an unprecedented attack this week by the Hamas military group? Which one is it, AJ?
It would be Israel.
It was Israel.
Yes, correct. Israel formally declared war on Hamas, so it's not just a summer thing.
Hmm.
All right, question number 2. The House of Representatives has been in disarray following the ousting of Speaker Kevin McCarthy. Who did the House Republicans pick as their nominee for Speaker this week? Now, remember, this was done on
Thursday.
Thursday,
Right.
um, and it has changed since then.
Right. It was Steve Sheets in a
Well,
surprise move.
s-
Our friend
I would
Steve.
be, I wouldn't want to I wouldn't want to wish that on Steve.
Dude, lemonade for everybody.
Yeah, oh my God. At least serve it. Well, if you serve it in the house,
Yeah.
um, somebody's gonna get a handy from Lauren
So
Boebert. So
I have to tell you, I been doing a little Duolingo, trying to pick up some other languages. And in German, the phrase for cell phone is mein Handy.
have you ever seen the term for team?
Team? No.
Would you like to be on my team? Would you like to be on my man shaft?
That's funny. Now, let me ask you this. Do you know your way around like Linux OS or any of that stuff?
No.
Okay. I'll skip those jokes then.
All right. It was Majority Leader Steve Scalise. He since withdrawn because he was not able to get the crazies to come over. They have since now, well, they should do have that as part of the news. Jim Jordan is their designee. I don't know if he's going to get the votes either. I don't know if there's going to
So
be a counter push on the other side.
they know that he doesn't have the votes right now. But the strategy is, according to the party I went to last night, that they are going to put him up there and they're just going to keep going and going with the idea that then they can essentially embarrass and shame the Republicans who won't vote for him. Because the
Well, it's what they
Republicans,
did with McCarthy in January.
right, and I mean they McCarthy had to make some crazy ass deals too. Um, but at this point in time, it's interesting. Now, this part I don't understand. Do only the Republicans get to put forward a candidate?
No, because Hakeem Jeffries will be nominated by the Democrats since he's the
Mhm.
minority leader.
So if the
Well,
Democrats,
anybody can put forward a candidate. Like remember in January you
They
had
do stupid shit.
McCarthy, you had um,
Pelosi,
Pizza Gates putting up
right?
various dudes, and
So
then
if I were the Democrats, I would find guys who like this is their last term and nominate them and say, "Look,
A
you should be
Republican?
speaker." Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, if there were 4 Republicans who had already announced that they were going to not run for reelection,
Yeah.
I think it would behoove them to say, "You know what? If you make Jim Jordan the speaker, we will leave the conference and put you in minority status."
Yeah.
You know, there you can have you can play the games that the crazies did. There's ways to do it.
Yeah. I
Um,
mean, honestly, why not just say, "I'm going
scuttle the
independent."
ship. Yeah,
Do a, Bernie Sanders.
yeah.
That would be pretty interesting.
All right, question number 3. Approximately how many books are being used to train artificial intelligence systems?
0. It's all
10,000,
digital.
10,000, 20,000, 100,000, or
I mean, that's
200,000?
clearly 200,000.
It's gotta be 200,000.
Yeah.
200,000.
I'm
Any
surprised that it's that low.
This is true.
I,
I'm waiting for an
once
audience.
worked, uh, in Silicon Valley, and I got to see the digitization process of, a lot of books. And essentially, it was a conveyor belt, and it had a saw, and the book went through the saw, and it cut off the binder, and then it took each page, and every page would get scanned, digitized, read, etc. It was really crazy.
Well, being with the VA, about that not quite 10 years ago. Well, yeah, it was about 10 years ago. We really went on an ambitious. Back in the 70s, we had a fire at one of the NARA repositories, National Archives repositories that had a bunch of veterans records
Uh-huh.
from the Vietnam era burn up. We lost a lot of records. Um, so about 10 years ago, they really did this aggressive effort of digitizing what we had were these big, thick red folders, trifold folders, um, that had all the evidence these veterans. Some had multiple volumes. So we did that. For the most part, every veteran's record has been digitized and put into an electronic folder now. The only ones I don't think that have that had that happen are folders that have been retired prior to the digitization effort. So, any veteran who died long time ago, I don't think their records have been digitized. But yeah, uh,
I agree,
yeah,
200,000.
200,000. Yeah, I'm leaning 200,000 because one, it would be
It's
easy to do, and two,
yeah,
it's always the high number.
yeah.
Yep. All right, question number 4. Which social media company received a deadline from the European Union this week to address false and misleading claims about its platform?
First of all, I want to mention AJ's comment about does AI get to read the banned books? The answer is
Serious.
almost certainly yes, right? Just because one of the earliest examples of a really bad implementation with AI was they put an AI chatbot up, and they wanted it to learn by chatting with people. And within 2 days, the chatbot became unbelievably racist
Oh, yeah.
because people trained it to do that. So I would hope that reading To Kill a Mockingbird and a lot of the other important banned books, right? Because most of the books that are banned are about tolerance. So I hope the AI is reading them all. I agree with Heidi. I think it's X, formerly
I think
known.
it's X as well. Even the
That's
picture, I think you can see an X there.
Yep. Yep.
So, and it is X.
shocking.
And the funny thing is, X, every time I see it now, they're always
Formerly
following up
Twitter.
with formerly Twitter. Like, why did you change your name?
This is the same man that dead named his kid, and he can't get his social platform. I mean,
I don't know what it
awful.
is with
That's
his
great.
kids' names. Like his kids' names are like,
His kids' names are weird, but the trans kid, he dead names them on the regular.
oh, that's awful.
Hmm.
There is a interesting conversation to talk about with Twitter because, I think one of the things that brought a lot of people into this Twitter broadcast was AJ mentioning on Threads that we were going to be going live. And so
Heads.
AJ, you as a regular, how long have you been on Threads?
I think the second day.
Second day?
Mhm.
I got in, but then I didn't really do anything for a long time. But in the last 2 or 3 weeks, to me, it feels like Threads is really picking up steam. Does it feel
Oh,
that way to you too?
yeah, I've had a lot more follows and a lot more, I mean, just interactions, period.
Yeah,
Uh,
I think people who want a lot of followers get in and claim your real estate now on Threads. Also, the conversations are
it's,
generally more pleasant.
Yes,
yes,
much
I
more.
haven't had anyone call me a name at all yet, at all, which is
Hmm,
crazy.
I'll get
And
on that.
I've been myself. I mean, I've been,
Yep,
the same opinionated person I've always been, and no issues. So,
awesome.
No, and I think, because it's largely curated from your Instagram following, and Instagram really isn't like I mean, it is a communications tool in that you're putting up pictures of yourself and things like that. Threads is a lot freer as far as the content. I mean, you can't put videos up, or at least I haven't been able to put a video up on Threads. So, um, but I've enjoyed Threads so far, and if I can get a social media experience that is not like Twitter or X, I would be very grateful. I know a lot of people have been pumping the tires of Blue Sky, and I'm like, let's pick something and move there.
yeah,
Or, like, I'm
yeah,
tired of adding social media and, like, I tried to do Mastodon, tried to do some, back in the day, MeWe, which turned into a nightmare, and
absolute bullshit. Like within a week.
yeah,
Yeah.
what were some of the other usurpers?
Oh gosh, I can't even remember now. But yeah,
And
when the great
Mastodon just never
zuckening
had
happened.
yeah, I just never
Yeah.
had much happen with Mastodon that kept me going
Well,
back there.
I do. Well, so let me make a couple suggestions to that. I'll follow up with you on this, but go to press.coop/directory, or you just go to press.coop and it'll take you there. And you can add every news organization that you want to follow into your Mastodon directory. Uh,
Mm,
because, as an example, NPR is not on Twitter anymore.
Yes.
But Threads, I really do believe Threads, because so here's one of the great things about Threads, right? I am now in direct connection with the lead developer, the project manager for Threads. I am convinced that they are going to implement ActivityPub, which is the protocol that makes Mastodon work, and join the Fediverse. The way the Fediverse works, and so I'm going off the deep end here in terms of technology, but
Dan's gonna
even if
nerd
you
out.
weren't even if you weren't particularly good with technology, you could host your own free Mastodon server on AWS. The amount of traffic that it will be way under what they'll give you free for a year. And they want to do it because they have the idea that maybe you would get popular and you'd want to buy more stuff from them.
Sure.
But there's all sorts of tutorials about how to spin up your own server on AWS right now. And what that means is that then nobody can ban you, right? Nobody can censor you because you're running your own server in the Fediverse. And that is the real strength of the system. And when Threads gets around to that, it's going to be, it's going to change, because the way the technology should work, we did a couple things wrong. And I'll take some of the blame for this. Uh, in the very early days of the internet, um, we had sort of the right idea about email. Okay. Email is a protocol, and I can email you whether you're on Gmail or Yahoo, or like Dave, who's still on his old AOL address. Um, I
Instant
can
messenger for life.
exactly. I can email anybody. And that's the way social media should work. It shouldn't matter which platform are you on. Now,
mm,
one of the things that we did
ICQ,
wrong
baby.
with email is that I send you an email, and then you get it. So that allows the spam formula, where I can now send an email to 100,000 people really easily, and it lives in their inbox. If I happen to put an image in there that is, let's say, 1 meg in size, now I've created 100 megs worth of images in people's inbox. The way that we should have done it was I send you a notification saying, on my server is a mail message for you, and then you come and read that mail message. Because then there's no spam anymore, right? I'm not sending an email out and spamming a million different people or
Yeah,
with
but
a lot of.
someone's grandma's gonna go to every one of those damn messages.
You can't stop. Yeah, you can't fix stupid.
Yeah.
Sorry, Grandma, but there is. But that's the idea behind the Fediverse. So now, instead of me sending my message out to everybody, I tell people who might be interested, I have a new message for you to read. And people who want to read it, read my message off of my server. And that's a much better model than the way Twitter works or even the way Facebook works. So, Fediverse for life.
All right. All right, question number 5. Which 2024 Republican presidential contender announced that he is ending campaign?
I didn't even hear this.
I didn't hear this either. Donald Trump, Wish, Senator Tim Scott, tech entrepreneur Vivek Ramaswamy, or former Texas Representative Will Hurd. We already
Well,
have.
I'm tempted to say that since I didn't hear it, it was Will Hurd because,
Yeah, it's the only one of the 4 that I didn't even realize he was running for president. So,
well, but also I didn't heard it. AJ got the joke the first time.
yeah,
Dave,
Did it?
I
I
just
did.
you did not.
yeah. Sorry about that.
That's all right, but I also agree. Yep. God, I never
Whoever
even
that
heard of the
guy
guy.
is. See
And
ya.
look,
So
he's wearing
he was a
libertarian colors.
yeah. So um he was when I want to say he was the one who was elected after Beto O'Rourke ran for president.
Gotcha.
He was a one-term congressman, CIA, was not one of the Kool-Aid drinkers for Donald Trump. It fell out of favor with the Republicans and um, was defeated in a election. Another
Well,
a young lady, I think, beat him.
I'm glad he had the sense to get out because having been there inside the campaign team room, it's often hard to see, oh, we should stop.
Yeah.
All right. Recommended the new COVID-19 shot, which I did not get last week. I got delayed, so I have to get it this week.
Okay. So CDC has recommended the new COVID-19 shot for everyone in which age group? 6 months and older, 13 and older, 21 and older, or 65 and older?
I think it's 65 and older. But I don't know. Might be 21 and older.
Yeah, I'm gonna say 65. I don't know that they're gonna. Well,
If
it's
only
a
we had a
recommendation.
medical professional on the panel with us.
I'd say it's probably 65 and older just because it's that time of year.
All right, exactly. It's flu season.
It is flu
I
season.
mean,
You get
I
the flu
I
that's
am
shot.
that's who you normally recommend vaccines for.
I am
Yeah.
getting 4 shots at once. I'm getting my
Oh,
RSV,
I'm so sorry.
my flu shot, my COVID, and my second shingles vax.
Are you
Oh,
ready for a migraine?
I have never had a migraine in my life. Knock
6
on
and
wood.
up is what Heidi says.
Heidi says 6 months and up? No, I disagree, Heidi.
Yeah, I don't know that. Well, I mean,
Although she was right on Will Hurd, and Heidi's really smart.
Heidi is
But
very, very
I think
smart.
that was Janice. Yeah, well, they both did actually.
but AJ is also really smart.
Oh,
Oh, Heidi, you were
Was
right.
6
not about.
Heidi.
Wow, that's some crazy
Wow,
shit.
I didn't realize that.
Dang, 6 months. So that's like putting that as a vaccine for, your before your kids can go to school type deal.
Yeah,
That rotation, like your
Putting it
pets and
putting
all
it in there with the MMRs is a little bit. That's a little bit crazy.
it is a little crazy.
that.
I
Yeah,
don't think either of my kids had uh, a flu vaccine until they were school aged.
yeah. That's crazy. All
Yeah,
right,
I'm
question number
Mhm.
7. Which heavily trafficked website wants to do away with passwords and pivot to alternate sign-in method known as passkeys?
Can we get more
Amazon,
context?
Google, YouTube, or Yahoo?
Google has been on passkeys for quite a while. I don't know for sure. I see a little red there and some purple. Do you see purple in the left there?
I see dead people.
I,
Purple is Yahoo,
like,
and you can make an argument that they would want to innovate. Passkeys are much better than passwords. I'm just saying. But I don't know. I'm going to guess Yahoo because they're the ones who need to move forward. And Google's already been big in passkeys. Well,
Oh,
Heidi
yes,
says
yeah.
Yahoo, and I
Heidi
think we
says
got to go
Yahoo.
with her because she was right last time.
yeah,
Oh, it's Google.
Oh, it is Google. Damn it.
wow. We are
Houston, just
sucking on this quiz.
I've got
We
to go
are.
pee and then throw up, and because the information is not pleasing.
All right. Question number 8. Which potentially harmful ingredient has been banned from use in all California foods? High fructose corn syrup, enriched wheat, red dye number 3, or sodium nitrate? I mean,
Red dye number 3.
Yeah, I was
I
going
would
to say,
say
if there's
red
a
dye number
context
3.
clue ever, this is red dye.
I mean, to me, I would think it would be the high fructose corn syrup, but
No, those guys have too much money behind them to get banned.
yes, red
And
dye.
this
Look at all the
actually does
red
cause like
bones.
all kinds of crazy shit.
Yep. So, 4 potential harmful chemicals in food, including the common color additive red dye number 3. Chemicals found in thousands of products from many popular candies.
Hmm.
Question number 9. President Joe Biden unveiled new efforts to crack down on which types of fees? Junk
The
fees,
hidden
mortgage fees, college fees, or passport fees?
junk face.
Yeah, gotta be junk fees.
What the hell are those?
All those extra
All
okay, like
fees?
you buy tickets, right? I have bought tickets for a
Oh, God.
band, and I'm like, "Okay, it's $150. Okay, I've got
Gotcha.
$150." And then you go to check out, and there's, like, 19 other
Convenience
fees, and
fees.
suddenly it's $383.
Got it. All right.
Correct. Biden announced new efforts to crack down on junk fees, which will just be rolled into the price of the ticket now. So, I mean,
I think the argument is that that's what they would prefer.
which, yeah, I mean,
It's
I
so
don't think we're
you're
gonna
honest, you know
see.
what you're paying for it.
Right.
That's the whole point. Is
Yeah,
okay, if it's $383, guess I won't bother.
Right.
But if I
There's a
get to
point at which
checkout after
exactly.
going through the whole process,
Right.
yeah,
If you've emotionally committed to making the purchase because you could afford it at $200, then when
yep.
you get to 250, you're like, ah, fuck.
You have to sell some more cocaine.
I know
All
this.
right, question number 10. One lucky lottery winner ticket was sold for what it was 1.73 Powerball, $73 billion Powerball jackpot was sold this week in which state? And it's generally the normal state that these tickets are sold in.
Right. I mean, if you're going to have to guess a state based on population, what would you guess?
They know how to party.
Yeah. California
Yep.
knows how to party
I can see the video playing in my head right
in the
now.
city of Compton.
Word. Yeah, so California, and I think the last couple of big ones have been sold out of California.
So I will confess that I bought 5 tickets.
Did you
I
win?
won $4.
Yay!
But at $1.7 billion total, yeah,
2.
nice job, Dave. Your take home is actually $1 billion, which is crazy. $1 billion is so much money.
Well, and then taxes. So
No, but I think yeah.
yeah, so
Right. Your take home,
if you did the cash op or the I'm sorry, not the cash option, but if you did the annuity, it'd be the 1.73, but then taxes each year.
right,
Do you live 25 years to see it all? Does the government go bankrupt and all of a sudden you're screwed? Do you go to
right.
JG Wentworth and say, "I have a lot of money and I need cash now"?
Yeah.
So,
Oh, wow. If only we
all right.
had them as a sponsor.
Yeah, I know.
You did so well.
I know.
Right.
I need to dress up in an opera guard and sing it next time.
Mm.
All right. Well, that is the show this week. Any other good stuff from y'all?
I think that we got plenty of
Um,
good stuff coming up. I wanted to give a shout out to 2 libertarian candidates who are on the trail, Chase Oliver and Lars Mapstead. Both had big campaign things going on this weekend. Chase was up in New England. Lars had actually been in New England the week beforehand and was doing stuff in California this week. So thanks to those candidates who are out there. I have no idea what's going to happen to the party. I'm not going to the convention,
Nope.
but I mean,
I'm
I,
crazy
I
candidates.
I live nearby, so I might like
Oh,
go troll the convention.
Heidi,
But
how did your election go?
yes, please, Heidi, tell us that.
Because your election was yesterday, I think. That's what you told me in your DM the other night.
Doom, 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 doom. I'm just thinking that somebody said I couldn't rap Sir Mix-a-Lot, and so you get a
well,
thing in your
you
waist,
know,
you get sprung. Want to pull up to? Sorry.
My anaconda don't want none in the street.
Exactly.
Buns,
hot
huh?
buns, huh?
See,
Exactly. Ladies,
James.
if you want to ride in my
Oh,
sorry.
well, that sucks.
Thank you, Craig. It is 4 minutes away from my birthday. It's very
Oh
exciting.
my
May you
goodness.
get all the non-consensual, actually the consensual spankings that you desire for your
100%.
birthday.
I do have on Facebook a
Oof.
fundraising thing for my birthday party. So if people want to, definitely would appreciate that. It's going to the emergency services in Israel. Won't be spent on military or money or bombs or anything like that. Just helps with blood thing. Thank you, Des. Miss you.
Yeah, it's Paraguay next week. I had an issue with my video editing software today. I have the raw footage ready to go, but it's just it crapped out on me.
All right.
You need to
I'm excited.
come to have dinner with me at the convention.
I might, Chuck, when is the Keystone Convention? I might come up for that. I do have a trip to Eastern Pennsylvania scheduled at some point in time, and so I would love to come see you, Chuck. That would make me very happy.
Awesome.
All right, it is after. It's
Yeah,
almost
it
midnight.
is. It is
Right.
almost midnight. We had a long
Happy
show tonight.
birthday!
Happy birthday,
Thank you.
man.
Thank you, guys.
Many spankings for you.
All right. Say goodnight, Gracie.
Good night, Gracie.
Good night, Gracie.